Here's a sneak peek from today's episode.
Well, I am a truly believer on entertainment as a way of cutting through the noise. People want some kind of relief on their stressful lives. If you can provide them with that and at the same time embed your brand and your brand messaging there, it's going to be a good way to reach your target in a relevant way.
Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Rodrigo. Rodrigo, welcome to the show.
Very excited to be here, Ben. Thanks for inviting me.
I love it. I'm excited for the conversation. It's going to be a ton of fun. But before we dive into that, Rodrigo, let's get to know you. What's your background? What's your work history?
Yeah, I would say I'm a marketer with probably more than 20 years of experience in different segments, B2B, B2C. I've worked in oil and gas, telecommunications, education agencies, in the dating app industry. And now I'm in the AI world at Quillbots.
So the next question we love to ask, what do you love about content and marketing?
Yeah, I love how marketing transitioned from something that was interrupting people's lives and intrusive and top-down approach of you must watch it and get my message to something that marketers really transformed into content builders in a way that nobody's going to watch what you have to say anymore if they don't want to. So we need to entertain, we need to be relevant. The information needs to be prepared to be delivered to the right people in the right time, probably in a very fun way. So it's more kind of shoving down content and more like conquering the audience in a way that we must think marketing about much more as entertainment, relevance than anything else than in the past, right? So I am old enough to have lived this transition, and that really excites me. And I should say, other thing that really excites me is getting people thinking about talking about what the brand I'm working for is doing. So very excited to keep rocking this boat with Quillbot.
Well, Rodrigo, we're going to talk about today how to really stand out and have your message stand out in a crowded marketplace. A lot of times people will call this cutting through the noise, and obviously that makes sense. So when you look at it, how do you recommend people use their content to stand out in a unique and authentic way, especially when crowded marketplaces are everywhere? It's almost impossible to come out with a product or a feature that doesn't have 18 different versions of it out there by someone else. How do we use content to really stand out in these marketplaces?
I think it all starts with deeply knowing your audience. I think that's the first step, where your audience is, what do they like to consume, and we need to go beyond that thought of, okay, so I'm selling for professionals or I'm selling for business, so I need to be very serious and take a more business approach, while professionals are also on TikTok and Instagram. If you don't deeply know what they like to watch, you're gonna miss a lot of opportunities to connect with them. But I would say step one, deeply knowing your consumer, where their attention is, and then connect with it. I mean, instead of trying to push your message down, what is really relevant for them and what kind of culture they consume, right? I think it all comes to a game of cultural relevance. If your audience loves music, how can you find a way of being there? If your audience likes sports, how and what kind of sport is that? How could you kind of try to connect with it? So we should try to find shortcuts of attention, to be honest, in ways that we kind of get a ride on what they already like to watch. I also would say we need to be impactful when we are putting our messaging out there. A little bit of unexpectedness and uniqueness to your message goes a long way. And use all tactics, as many tactics as possible and as your budget allows, because some of them will definitely fail, others will be successful. So if you do like kind of coordinated messaging attack, if I could say, you have more chance to succeed.
I love that. So when you're looking at content in a crowded marketplace, what data do you care about that's really showing that your message is standing out to your audience, that it's making an impact? You talked about we can fail and make mistakes and learn rapidly. How are you determining success from failure with the data points, and what are you looking at?
I think the number of views is also is important, but also the level of engagement your asset is creating. When it comes to top of the funnel, right? But also how that is affecting your brand perception. So brand lift studies, potentially depending on your media plan mix, you need an incrementality analysis to make sure you're bringing additional users compared to a potential forecast. I think share of voice is a relevant measure as well. Like what all the compound efforts you're doing is affecting on the share of how much your brand is contributing to all the noise out there. And then you have other metrics that are more bottom of the funnel, right? I mean, the general downloads, installs, purchases, and so on. Also monitoring how the sentiment on the comments are. If you are pairing that with a comms initiative, how many impressions you're getting, the buzz out there that's basically shared by the share of voice.
I love that. So when you look at share of voice, you mentioned that metric from before, and there's a lot of people in your space producing a lot of content, saying a lot of things. Are there any techniques or strategies for making sure you get a larger share of voice? Do you personally like to go head to head on the big keywords and the competitive phases? Are you doing long term or community building? How do you kind of look at those opportunities to get more of that share of voice?
Well, I am a truly believer on entertainment as a way of cutting through the noise. People want some kind of relief on their stressful lives. If you can provide them with that and at the same time embed your brand and your brand messaging there, it's going to be a good way to reach your target in a relevant way. So I'm a strong fan of content that really entertains, and also a huge fan of content that really informs people. So depending on your business, you can really provide useful information. For example, I am Brazilian living in the US, speaking English with this funny accent, and all the time I'm trying to kind of, how can I speak better? What's the difference between man in the singular and in the plural? I mean, the pronunciation for me is exactly the same, but there's a difference. And every time I see an influencer explaining that, I stop to watch. So, what's that for your core audience? You know, what's relevant to them? What they want to see that may deliver useful information and at the same time add your brand into the mix.
I love that. I think that's such an interesting point because I hadn't really thought about it as much, really about cutting through the noise. But when you really think about it, marketplaces, especially in B2B, they're so full of people giving educational content.
Yeah,
That's kind of like the business MO, but that is a really good way to stand out. And even if every one of the competition is trying to be entertaining and funny and whatever it may be, everyone will do it differently. Like it's hard to copy entertainment as opposed to copying like informational content.
yeah.
So I love that as like a standpoint. It's probably never there's probably a few industries where it's extremely inappropriate to be funny about what you're doing, but outside of those few exceptions, the entertainment's going to show your value. And even if it's not, I'm teaching you something today, I brought a smile to your face and at least shows I get you. If I get you well enough that I can make you laugh, maybe we're a fit. Maybe we should be friends, kind of an idea. So I think that's such a cool way of doing that. Any recommendations? And we're running out of time. So it's going to be a final question. I'm going to throw you the ultimate curveball. When you're looking at creating entertainment content, a lot of brands get stuck because it's hard. They don't know what they should do or how they should approach it. It's easier to write an educational blog post about something. But when it comes to entertaining your audience, any advice from your career of what you've seen for people that just get the juices flowing and know what to create so they can stand out?
I think you should take some risks. It's hard to know what's going to work or not out there, especially if you are targeting a generation that's not yours. I mean, the difference in terms of tastes and topics and approaching content is among different generations because we have basically four generations, soon to be five generations, living together in the workspace, right? We still have boomers, we have X, we have, I don't know if we still have boomers, but X, millennials, Gen Z for sure, soon to be alpha. And they're very different when it comes to how they approach content, digital, and so on. So it's hard to know. Sometimes you need to take some big swings, you need to take some risks and test. So don't be afraid of fail. Just try to fail fast and cheap. Surround yourselves with a very good team, very good agencies, very good partners, who know how to make stuff that's relevant. for the core target, and that's entertaining. And that would be my advice. Yeah.
I love that. And I absolutely love that quote. I've heard fail fast plenty of times, but
Yeah.
fail fast and cheap. That's a good extra benefit there. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Rodrigo, I have loved this conversation. It has been so much fun. I've learned a ton, but we're out of time today. If anyone wants to connect with you and reach out online, how and where can they find you?
Well, LinkedIn is the best way. Rodrigo Fontes. Yeah, just add an invite there, send a message, let's connect. I think that's the best way. Yeah.
I love it. And we will link to Rodrigo's LinkedIn profile inside the show notes below, so it's easy to find. Again, Rodrigo, thank you so much for the time and the insights today. It has been absolutely amazing. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.